me tonight. They got to see me.
I think if you got a guy like that, you build like that, 6'4", you got to trust.
Everybody watching tonight. So I tell you what, if you get fired into the next, you're in the wrong business. We control this. We run this. And anybody coming out of the house,
they got Jordan Davis last season. They bring Fletcher Cox back in Philly. So I'm sitting there like, we need to put something on this offensive line to combat that. What's going on? Welcome back, everybody. The 10-4 Dallas Cowboys are headed on the road to take on the 10-4 Miami Dolphins. Currently sitting there as 1-point dogs. Over/under sitting at 50.5. That's been moving up and down a little bit. You can catch it at 49.5 some places, 51.5 others. Talk to me a bit about how you're feeling, bro.
Hey, look, we got to bounce back, man. We got two tough teams, right? And a team that's, I'm gonna be honest, like seeing how we came out last week and Buffalo would just be able to, spam the run over and over and over again. I expect Miami to come out and try to follow that same blueprint. But if you think about it, man, you got two 10-4 teams. Both of us are, fighting for our playoff lives right now. Well, I ain't gonna say playoff lives, but we're fighting for the seeding, right? They got some tough games coming up. Obviously, we got another tough game coming up after this one. We both need it. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, but I think nevertheless it's gonna be a fun game, man. And we got to see who comes out on the better end of this one.
No, this is definitely a scary matchup, one that we had circled before the season started. It's a fast team. It's a fun team. It's also a situation where we are one of 4 teams that have clinched a playoff berth. Miami has not. But I know Buffalo's sitting in the background hoping we take care of Miami for them. They're still over there sitting on the bubble, right? Diving right into some of these numbers here, man. So offensively, you got the number 1 scoring offense going against the number 2 scoring offense, right? Kind of a wild thing there.
Yeah.
Miami averaging 31.5, Dallas 30.8. Points per game on defense, man. Miami sitting at 14th, Dallas at 5th. So obviously, defensively, we have the what you could say is the better defense, but they got a nice defensive coordinator. What excites you most in this matchup?
I think just honestly, like finally beating. I can't even say finally beating the winning team, right? But let's go ahead and push this narrative of can't win on the road. Let's get that out the way. I think now, seeing how we kind of laid the egg last week, right? I just want to see how we respond, and I think that excites me the most. And then we think back to like the preseason of it and just kind of just going through the schedule. We knew right here, this one right here was going to be a fun matchup regardless, man. You got playmakers all over the field. When you think about both sides of it, Tyreek Hill and Waddle, you think about the whole team, to be honest. We talk about speed. I'm talking about fast and playmakers and Tua, Tua's looking good this year. Let's be honest. Defensively, they just got Jalen Ramsey back. We all know about Vic Fangio and the guy who, he said he found a blueprint a couple years back. So we know, a little bit of what he likes to do. And then you think about us on our end. You already spoke of it when you said number 1 offense, number 2 offense. And it got the potential for a lot of points. But I want to see if our defense can step up, man, and how are we going to be able to deal with a Tyreek Hill and a Waddle. And I think this will say a lot about us as a team. And then, Mike McDaniels is very, I guess you could say Kyle Shanahan. He came from that tree. A lot of the same things that'll give you a good look at that. And but make no mistake about it, all those playmakers, man, and they run the ball. They do run the ball. Mostert and Achane, those guys right there, like they will spam it, and believe it or not, they get those boys the ball a ton.
It's crazy too. They got Mostert sitting in the season right now with 20 touchdowns. Who would have saw that coming, right? He's this year's Jamal Williams is what it looks like. Miami, man, they're averaging 27.5 rush attempts per game, 31 over the last 3. We're giving up 117 per game on the year, 266 over the last 3. Obviously, that's a little skewed because of James Cook. But Buffalo, they were able to run the ball on us 49 times, right? Can Miami come out and do that? I sure hope not. I think hopefully Dan Quinn will be able to get in his bag a little bit on this one. And the crazy thing, too, is there's familiarity between these coaching staffs because Mike McDaniel was an offensive assistant under Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator over in Atlanta. So those two do have familiarity with one another. Talking into the coaching matchups, right? You got obviously DQ and Mike McDaniels, man. So who do you think has the edge in that matchup, as well as the Mike McCarthy Vic Fangio matchup?
Hi, it's tough to pick one way or the other, right? With Vic Fangio, I would say our offense should have the matchup, right? But on their side, I feel like Mike McDaniel's got the matchup, especially for what we did last week, man. And it just depends on what type of, I guess, offense he pulls out of here, right? So, you think about it. You look at the team and you say, man, I just think they can flat out just come out here and they try to attack us and pass the ball, pass the ball, pass the ball, right? Knowing that Tyreek Hill set out last week, for sure he's trying to get to that 2,000 mark.
Oh yeah.
Or in the back of everybody's minds, and I'm sure Mike McDaniel's, he probably shooting for that record as well. But then you got to think about it, like, what's the best way to neutralize a team like Dallas? And I think Buffalo showed that well. It's like, we got a fierce pass rush. The best way to deal with a pass rush is to run the ball.
Right.
And I think we kind of expected the same thing with Buffalo, man. Just going into that one, we was kind of like, what I mean, we Stephon Diggs and they got all this and Josh Allen, and they just spam the run. They spam the run, and it makes me beg the question back to you. Whereas, like, I felt like Dan Quinn could have a matchup if we kind of get ahead and play our type of ball. But then with this offense, it's like you're never too far ahead anyway because they got playmakers all over the field. But what I will ask you is, with Dan Quinn, like, will he be able to adjust this week? That's the question. Like last week, they were spamming the run, and it seemed like he never did anything to kind of adjust to that. And a lot of talk this week was Micah being an off-ball linebacker, and did it leave him on the edge too much, and different things like that. So, and then he came into that game, I guess, thinking Josh Allen was going to do what he was going to do. But if you asked him after the game, he said the biggest problem was tackling. And now how you feel about that?
I think Micah's placement, to be honest, is going to be very, very contingent on the script of the game. I think Micah coming off the edge is going to be efficient. He is elite at that, especially with a lead. But if it's still a running situation, and Miami's still able to run the ball because it's a close game, they're in the lead, that's when I think you're going to have to move Micah off ball. There's really no need for Micah to be playing on the edge when you're in the middle of a losing script. I think Mike is best suited on the edge. But I do have a couple of things, right? So talking about the run game, talking about DQ, coming out of halftime in the third quarter, right? Defensively, we are the 17th team in the league giving up points in the third quarter, right? Miami is fourth on offense. Third on offense, I'm sorry. So I think this game is going to be strongly determined in the third quarter. And what that tells me is DQ is middle of the pack at halftime adjustments. And this is a stat I just found for the first time today, and I'm kind of taken back by it because I thought we were doing all right after the half. Quarter two, leading up to the half, we are second in the league on offense, and Miami is first, right? So all of our points come rewind. Quarter one on offense, Dallas is first in the league, Miami is fourth. So they both come out with hot starts. Quarter two on offense, Dallas is second, Miami is first in the league. Flipping that around, quarter two on defense, 15th in the league for us, 17th for Miami. So it looks like the defenses are middle of the pack in the second quarter where the offenses shine. I don't know if that's a time of possession thing there or what, but to me, it looks like this game is going to really come down into the middle quarters. Second and third quarters where we're going to see the make or break situation in this one. Dan Quinn's halftime adjustments in the Buffalo game blew my mind because they were gashing us outside. They were gashing us inside. And it was like, there was no way Jonathan Hankins made that big of an impact, right? Yeah, he's our run stuffer, but Mozzie's going to have to step up in this one.
But Mozzie, believe it or not, he played a decent game last week. And you kind of spoke of it where he was like, he was more so to the edges. And it was like every time James Cook got to that edge, it was just chunk yardage for whatever reason. And then Dan Quinn spoke of the tackling. Those safeties, they didn't come down to tackle that game. Neither did the linebackers. So if you're talking about tackling, this is the week you got to tackle because you got some yak machines out of here. I mean, we be thinking about Tyreek Hill. Like, if you don't get him on the ground, hey, he's going to the house. And Waddle, and then obviously a chain, and most of like all of these guys right here is like they got open field, big play potential. If you don't get these guys to the ground, man, so definitely got a gang tackle. Definitely got to wrap up this week. It's going to be key this week, man. And like overall, right? And you think about Miami, so it's funny because the same things they say about the Dallas Cowboys, where they say, "Oh, you can't beat a winning team over 500," and what do you do against winning teams? Well, the Dolphins are the AFC version of that,
right?
I mean, you hear all the same things. Like, so somebody has to win this week, right? and like obviously we was able to beat Philly, so we got that winning record on our schedule. Obviously, I mean the Rams won last week, so now does that count as a winning record? I think they're now 8-7. But what I do want to do is I do want to show you how similar both of these teams are, and I would say how the schedule has went for both of us so far. So if you think about Miami and four, they are 0-3 against when the team's over 500, believe it or not, right?
Hmm.
So you think about some of the losses they've taken there. So they're 10-4, identical records. The teams they've lost to was Buffalo, who we just lost to, and that was a 48-20 game. Buffalo blew them out, right? They lost to Philadelphia, got blown out 31-17. Now, if you watch that game, that was kind of like the similar game where they was in it with Philly, but Philly was able to kind of do what they did, pull away at the end, and the scoreboard says one thing, but I think it was a lot closer. And then Tennessee obviously was able to sneak a win in on them, not a winning team, but they also lost to the Chiefs 21-14 by a touchdown. But then you think about the Chargers, they beat them by 2 points. New England, touchdown game. Obviously, we know the huge game in Denver that changed everything, 70 points to 20. That's crazy, right? They blew out the Giants, the Carolina Panthers. That sound real familiar, right?
Hmm.
They blew out New England in the second game, 31-17. They beat the Raiders by a touchdown. They beat the Jets 34-13. Played the Commanders, blew them out 45-15, and then they just beat New York again 30-0. A lot of familiar foes and a lot of, I guess you could say, similar in results as far as what happened. But in that last five, I mean, they haven't really, they played against much, and it's a lot of talk about what type of team we'll see. So somebody has to win this game.
It did, excuse me. It does seem like we got the battle of the bullies on our hands this weekend, but just to dive quick back into some of these stats, man. So you mentioned that it's a yak team. Miami is fourth in the league in rushing yards, first in passing yards, whereas we are 12th in rushing, sixth in passing. But if you look at the time of possession, Dallas is still sitting pretty, and we are second in the league time of possession. Miami is 10th. So you would think with all these yards cured by Miami that their time of possession would be a little better. So what that tells me is explosive plays, right?
Yeah.
They're really never in a situation where they're controlling the clock. However, yet again, the Dallas Cowboys are leading the league in penalties. Mike McCarthy is running an undisciplined thing once again. So Miami is sitting at 15th in penalties. A little more disciplined, and I think really a big thing in a big factor in this game is going to come down to the penalties, man. Can we stay disciplined? Can we avoid the dumb mistakes? We talk about sacks, man. Dak has been sacked 32 times, Tua 25. And to me, the big difference in this one with what James Cook and Josh Allen did to us is we don't have the threat of that read option, right? Tua's
Facts.
not going to tuck it and run. He'll get slaughtered out there. Whereas
Tua gonna
Josh,
Tua gonna fall. He
right.
ain't taking no shots.
But you got to worry about Josh Allen's big ass taking off. We're not worrying about that with Tua, right? So really it's going to have to be Mostert and Achane doing their thing because we're not going to have to worry about keeping somebody home to prevent Tua taking off. And that kind of leads me to ask you a question in this matchup. Are you more worried about the Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, or Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane?
It's tough, man. I think I'm more worried about definitely. I would say Achane and Raheem Mostert, just because I think with Hank has been out, especially seeing what we seen last week, it just seems like if a team is able to run the ball, we can't do what we do best. And I got the feel of like if they out there and let's say Mike McDaniels he falls in love with the pass, even though like Hill may make some plays and Waddle may make some plays or whatever, then the pass rush is still full effect. You know what I mean? And I feel like we can still play some of our best ball. And I think we got the guys to match up. I don't know. Like I did want to ask you, how do you feel like with Gilmore and Hill and Waddle? But I think at some point, I think it's going to come down to the run game again, and I think that's what worried me is because, like we seen in that Broncos that blowout game, you would have thought, man, they just ran up and down the field. I mean, as far as like just passing the ball to put up 70 points, no, like they was running the ball all over the field, man, and I think if we can stop the run and just kind of just keep teams from just playing that type of game, then I think we'll be okay. Whether Hill gets his, because I think Hill will get his regardless. I think we'll keep Waddle in check, but I think you got to keep Mostert and Achane definitely in check because if those two keep going, if they do what they want to do, then I think it opens up the whole playbook for everybody, and I think that'll be a tough sight to see.
I think too a big thing was the tackling in the Philly game was phenomenal, man. We didn't let those AJ Brown and Devontae Smith break away.
Yeah.
That's also a yak team, you know what I mean? The tackling wasn't precise last week, but if we can keep to the tackling in this one, well, we should be all right. But my big question is who's going to play center field safety because we cannot allow Tua to be one on one at this game at all, right?
Not Javon Curse.
No.
No, no, no. And I think that was a tough thing, man. We was pretty banged up last week, and not to make excuses, like whether it was a fluke, I don't know what was going on as far as the sickness that was going through the team, but I know Stephon Gilmore, he got it, Brandon Cooks, and a lot of these players was feeling down, and then obviously, we got banged up throughout the course of that matchup as well. So Malik Hooker, the good thing is, I mean, he's not out. He's questionable. So I think that's still obviously in the air or whatnot. But that'll be a big key if we can get him back in there. Because we don't want to see Dono or Javon Curtis out there in the middle of the field no more. He's kind of like our only guy that can kind of play sideline to sideline. So um, definitely, if Malik Hooker is out, I think that'll be a problem. And then just to kind of keep that going, right? Dotto, he's questionable. But we got two big names, obviously, that showed up on the injury report, right? Zach Martin, we all know what happened with him last week. Big scare for all of us. He's still very questionable, very in the air as far as like what they're playing now. But then you got Tyron Smith that hops up on the injury report, who just hearing about it just a little bit more that he may be even a worse situation than Zach Martin.
Mhm.
So I mean that's tough in itself. Hankins, we obviously know, I mean he was questionable, but obviously we don't expect him to come back this week. So we got some big names there, and then on the other side of that, right? So David Achane, he's been battling. He's a little banged up right now. He's questionable. I expect him to be out of there. We got big talk about the Dolphins and the offensive line, and all of them being out this past week. But it looks like Mike McDaniel's playing a little bit of chess, just getting his guys healthy. The only one that's going to be out is Robert Hunt, the offensive tackle. He's going to be out, but everybody else should be strapping up to play. Deshaun Elliott, the safety himself, he's questionable. Xavier Howard, he's banged up. He's questionable as well. And then Smythe, the tight end, is questionable. But I expect all those guys to play, excluding the offensive tackle, man. So just what are your thoughts on, the Zach Martin and Tyron Smith situation?
This last time we had issues like this on the offensive line, Arizona dog walked us, right? So I think we've been very, very lucky this season having one of the healthiest offensive lines. I don't like the idea of being down our two best linemen or two of the best linemen in the league, really.
Yeah.
That's going to kill our chances probably in the run game, which is going to limit us in the play action game. Man, and then I'm trying to think too because who's going to be able to step in and produce 50% of what those two can, right? I don't think we have the right swing tackle available for that. But is this a game where you consider shifting the O line around, maybe move Tyler Smith outside?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, Chuma Doga in his snaps, he's been decent. I think we'll be okay. Obviously, it's not Tyron Smith out there, but I think if Zach Martin is out, and that inside is, I mean, not where it needs to be, then I think you got a bigger problem that you need to deal with because as much as we like Tyler Bass and, the preseason, he's not ready right now. And, but they got some boys in there. You think about the big boys, man. I'm talking about like Christian Wilkins. He's a good player. We all
Mhm.
know like Bradley Chubb. He's out there. They did lose Phillips, Jalen Phillips, who was a great passer. They lost him for the season, right? But they still got some guys out there on that defensive line. What I mean, some boys that can get after the passer. So as far as Dak, I think if Dak is getting pressure from the outside, I feel comfortable in him being able to step up and move and still extend his legs. But if it's coming inside, I think we got definitely a bigger problem, man. And we just want Dak to be able to step up and move around. So hopefully Zach straps up. Hopefully Tyron Smith straps up too. But it's like if he's banged up, then you do have to beg the question of, do you think ahead of the schedule and say, even though we may lose this game to the Dolphins and whatever, and do we risk one of our better players and risk this playoff run just to put them in there just to try to win this game? Or do we rest them and gear them up for the playoffs? Because we talked about all these matchups, man. It sucks when you see Philly go out there and drop a game,
Mhm.
right? And we knew all the stakes that was in that Buffalo game, and obviously we kind of like right back into the same spot. And it's all dependent now, it seems like, if the Eagles was to drop one to the Giants, because as long as that happens, we control our own destiny. But this Dolphins game is still important in itself, because obviously if we both went out, which is very possible with Philly in their schedule, has come down to strength of victory. And I think, obviously common opponents, Philly has beaten Dolphins already. I think this is important in itself. So I think you got to balance that. I mean, if he's not ready, then I think you do got to sit him, man. The playoffs is more important, I think, than this game.
If Tyron is unable to go, I do expect us to be out in a lot of 12 personnel, which is going to, maybe a little more Jake Ferguson than we got last week, which would actually be pretty beneficial. Get a little chips out on the edge. And then maybe we get a little more Shoemaker out there as well. But if those two can't go, we're going to have to provide some extra support in the blocking game, whether that be going out in the eye a little more and getting Hunter Lupic out there, a little pass protection. I don't know, but it might force us into quite a bit of 2 wide receiver sets. But then, no, that's okay though, because then we got Brandon Cooks on the outside, we got CD on the outside, run a 2 tight end set if we have to get that protection that we need. But I think that's going to limit us tremendously in the run game.
Which is what I want to see a little bit more of. I'm expecting Fangio to kind of like do his, his thing where he's going to drop these guys back, and he want Dak to read the field and go through all of his options. And they got some guys out there, Jalen Ramsey. He's came back and he's been solid for the most part. It's Xavier Howard. We know who he is. I don't think he's still like one of the top 10 corners in this league, but he's still serviceable. But it's weird, right? I just want to see us get back to our weapons. Like Tony Pollard, I felt like he was off to a big game in general. And I feel like our rushing offense is, like kind of well improved from what it was early in the season. I want to see that continue. Let's build on that. But more importantly than anything, get CD the ball.
Yeah.
Get CD the ball, man. And, I want to see us get back to getting like 14, 15 targets a game. If we got to force feed him, let's force feed CD. I hated to not see Jake Ferguson involved in the game. Let's get Jake the ball, right? And what happened to Turpin?
Right.
Like, this was the one game where I just, it's like, bro, let's get Turpin back. That's why one speed guy, him and Brandon Cooks. Let's let these guys do what they do best, is stretch the defense out, and let's get back to motion and all those things. It just seemed like last week, I don't know if it was the weather, I don't know what it was, but it just seemed like everything just kind of changed, and it makes me question, like, is this road thing a big deal? Like, did being on the road change that much? Because I think it matters, and I think they all talked about the test of it, and we all hear the narrative of home versus being on the road, and Miami, it's not going to be as a tough environment as Buffalo. I will say that. So I want to see if we can kind of get some of that involved. The here we go, the communication, or whatever it's going to be. But get your playmakers the ball, especially because you ain't got to worry about Mike McDaniels getting his playmakers the ball. He's going to do that for sure.
I really think too, with this game, the bottom line, man, the over-under sitting around 50. I expect the score to get pretty close to that, and it's a 1-point game, right? So I expect a lot of scoring back and forth until turnovers start taking place. Because one thing I know, man, Tua is not the best thrower of the football, and I think Dan Quinn is going to probably look into that tremendously, do his homework, and try to find opportunities for us to, jump in and cut some routes. Because while Tua is accurate, he's not the best thrower of the ball downfield. But
yeah, okay. I was gonna say Tua would be throwing dimes, man. I would say that he put him on ropes, but it's a lot of tight one-on throws.
Yeah,
but throwing the ball deep downfield, yes, it's a little short arm sometimes, but they got the speed to, where it doesn't really make a difference. So it's tough. I think if you get to him, it's a big difference, though.
Pressure. No, for sure. That's what I think. It's really going to come down to pressure in this one. And last week when you mentioned, what do you do if you win that coin toss? I said we get the ball, we make a statement early on offense. We don't want to be chasing points in this one, because getting into a shooting match with Miami sounds like a scary deal.
Yeah, not what you want to do. And then like that definitely brings me back to your earlier conversation when you was talking about quarters and like second half and third quarter, like with like those type of adjustments, and what will you make? But I think if you come out here, right, you got to put points on the board. And that was the big thing. We got so used to just coming out there and just, at the blink of an eye, we on the board, we 7, we up, whatever. And I think we had the potential to do that. Like, you think about like Buffalo scoring, right? They went up 7, where I feel like, it should have been 3. Obviously, they got the roughing the passer penalty, but the first, I think it was maybe the second play, Dak drops back, he hits his back foot, and he just overthrows Brandon Cook's spot.
Mm-hmm.
Just that right there, and we got a 7-7 game, and it's back to an even playing field. And
Right.
you know what I mean? And then not only do you do that, but that changes the whole dynamic as far as them maybe even how they was playing us. You never know. And I just want to see us get back and being aggressive. Like, don't change anything. That's the thing where I say overreaction. Everybody, like the conversations, like, should we move Micah here? Let's do this. Yes, I think you do make adjustments depending on how the game go. But let's just get back to what we was doing well, man. We've been playing good ball. Obviously we're on the road, but let's not overreact, man. I think we still a good team. Yes, we're facing a good team on the road, but it's a very winnable game. And you know what I mean? I felt good going into this one. I know a lot of people are nervous just because of what they seen last week, but it's a week by week league. Styles make matchups. Buffalo got the best of us. But I do think, just as well as they feel confident going into this one, they hungry, right? You got to think about it. They got the Cowboys. They got
Mhm.
Baltimore Ravens coming up, and they got the Buffalo Bills. And these three games will decide their division. But we hungry, and I don't foresee us losing two in a row. I don't know the last time the Cowboys have lost two in a row.
No, it's been a while.
It's been a long time, and I'm willing to bet Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn and all those guys are they in there and they getting ready, man. And we talk about being blessings in disguise, right? A
Mhm.
lot of people they hate these things for it, and I talked about it the previous week where I said, heading to the playoffs, this is what you want to see.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yes, we didn't win that game, but it allows you to take that look in the mirror and see like where you stand amongst these teams because it's going to be a lot of similar matchups going into these playoffs. So this is just another beautiful situation. You know what I mean? If the Dolphins come out here and they railroad us again, then we learn a lot about who the Dallas Cowboys are, right? And if
Mhm.
we come out here and we fight back a week from having that type of performance, I think you learn a lot about the Dallas Cowboys as well, man. So I'm excited just in general, just to see how we come out here and we responded last week.
I think, end of the day, I think this is a game that's very winnable. As you mentioned, am I scared? No.
No,
It is an important game for both sides. As you always say, though, it's the quest for six. I think that's it from my side. You got any final words?
nah, I'm with you, man. Look, it's play, man. For real, the playoffs start now.
Right.
You know what I mean? It been in it. You know what I mean? You think about this, you think about Detroit. If y'all worry about the run game, look, check this stat out, right? So Buffalo, I think they was fifth in the league in rushing. The Dolphins are sitting at 4, and Detroit is sitting at 2. You know what I mean? Hankins is out. So I mean, he's not here to say the day, right? I think it's up to Dan Quinn. And I think we'll be fine, Cowboy Nation, man. Look, Dolphins are a scary team. Don't get me wrong, but the Cowboys are a scary team as well, man. You know what I mean? Stay off of the media, stay off the internet. We got a lot of haters out there for a reason. Everybody love when the Cowboys lose. But listen, man, you know what I mean? Just believe in your quarterback, believe in Dak, believe in Mike McCarthy because one thing about him, he's made those adjustments, time and time again. And I think we'll be okay. And hopefully we'll be victorious. We come back on here with a recap. We always say the victories feel a lot better, I mean, after the Cowboys win, but hopefully it feels a lot better on Christmas morning, man. And I mean, I wish y'all the best. Happy holidays to everybody. Let's go ahead and get this dub. And if that's it, man, hey, peace out.